Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 42 of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, I am coming to you from Germany, and today is June 10th, 2016. So welcome to any new viewers. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast and you might want to come back. And of course, welcome back to everyone who keeps coming back every week and keeps being supportive and watching the podcast. So thank you guys so much. I'm so glad that you're here with me today on this rather special episode, because today is the last episode that I'm filming in this place. In fact, 24 hours from now, the movers will already be here and be packing up everything. And that means that currently everything is a bit in shambles. Actually, if you look at the shelf here, it looks like everything's still there, because we haven't packed that yet, but I'm glad you can't see the rest of the apartment, because it is rather messy and there's boxes standing around. My stash is already packed. Well, mostly packed, besides a few things that I'm still working on. And yeah, it's just a little bit crazy. But I really wanted to get an episode out today because I did actually get a lot of knitting done. I really felt like I got nothing done, but I think I have just been stress knitting, so I haven't realized how much progress I've actually made. So today I'll talk about finished objects, works in progress, a little bit of spinning, and life in general. So let me just jump in with the knitting. It's not that much anyways, and then I'll babble on about my life and everything later. My first finished object are my boyfriend's socks. I don't have the tag with me, blame the move please, but these were from a German hand dyer called Wolkenschaf, and I will definitely link the dyer in the show notes. I feel like I've shown them before, but I'm also pretty sure I definitely finished them this week. But yeah, these were from my boyfriend. They're vanilla socks. I knit them on 68 stitches on 2.25 millimeter US size 1 needles. They have a fish lips kiss heel. This one is a little bit crooked. There we go. And a rounded toe. And I just had to fish them out of my boyfriend's closet, which he hadn't packed yet, so that's why they're a little bit crumpled up. But he really likes them, they fit. And yeah, so that's my finished object number 1. And yeah, then there's another finished object, and I really wasn't planning on finishing this. But I finished my robin sweater. And as you can see, it has not been blocked and the ends have not been woven in. And the reason for that is that I hurt my back, so I actually can't do very much besides sitting and lying down. So there was no way I was going to be able to block this thing, and I just couldn't force my boyfriend to block it for me because there's just so much else going on. And I always weave in my ends after I block things, so that's why it's in its unfinished but finished stage, I suppose. So what I've actually done is I finished the body. This sweater is really wide. It's very oversized. So on the last stripe I decreased some stitches and then bound off. So I'm not following the pattern anymore at all. This used to be the Robin pattern by Jose Paquin, Paquin, but essentially I only followed the pattern about up to maybe here when I separated for the sleeves, and then I just did my own thing. But everything I've done is written down in my project notes, if you were interested in that. So anyways, I finished the body and then I added the sleeves, and as you can see the sleeves are very oversized, so I just decreased rather quickly. I decreased 2 stitches every second row, and then on this last stripe every 4th row. And then I did 20 rows of 1 by 1 ribbing. So this fits, but again it hasn't been blocked, and I think I will show it again to you when it's blocked, and then I will also put it on, because right now I would actually have quite a few difficulties even putting this on. So yay! But anyways, I finished it. The yarn was BC yarn in their Semilla Extra Fino. I used less than 200 grams of yarn. That's also why I chose to bind up the body at some point, because I was really worried about running out. I knit this on 3.5 millimeter needles, And yeah, everything else is just in the project page, and I will definitely show it to you again after we moved and it's been blocked out, put it on and show it to you better. But yeah, you get the idea, I think. So, these are my finished objects and I will move into works in progress. First of all, I've made a lot of progress on my blanket. And of course, I'm in the middle of a square. So, let me just organize. So the last square I showed you last week was this blue one. Oh, I'm showing you the back. That's nice. So this week I knit this lighter blue one. I think it is from All About Yarn, but I'm not 100% sure. Then this hand-dyed awesome mini skein from my friend Johanna. I think she also dyed this one, in fact. So these were both hand-dyed 100% merino, I believe. Then I started a new row. I finally knit some pond into my blanket. I've been kind of not daring to use it because I just wanted the pond to be in my stash, but I knit a square in pond, and this is the colorway by Björnvolle, which was quite famous a couple of months ago. This pink one, oh gosh. This is from Knitting Shining, a dye that I hadn't tried before. I just got this mini. This green one you might recognize. This is from the socks that I just finished for my boyfriend. This is one of the minis that I got from Valkyrie Fibers Tahoe. She sent me some minis to try out her yarn, and she just opened her Etsy store. And of course that'll be linked in the show notes. This is actually one of the first sock yarns that I've ever knit with. So when I first started knitting socks, yesterday I found a couple of old scraps of sock yarn from my first pairs, and I wanted to knit them in. So I think it's just some Regia or Lana Grossa or something like that. This is my Squishy-licious yarn. So for my shawl sample, I use this yarn by Das Mondschaf. This brown one is from Malabrigo sock. And right now I'm knitting this orange one, which is Hedgehog Fibers in the Rusty Nail colorway. And I really like this. Again, I really want some Hedgehog Fibers. So that's quite a lot of squares. That's, hang on, almost 10 squares this week, or 11 squares actually. Or I just can't count. But anyways, I've done quite a lot on this blanket, and that's been really rewarding. Because like I said, it's been stressful, and then just knitting a square every now and then is pretty much the most I can do. So that's my blanket. Next I'll show you my Squishy-licious shawl. So I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I released a shawl pattern about 2 weeks ago, the Squishy-licious pattern. And we're hosting a squishy cal for this pattern, as well as my old pattern, which was the Crazy Days shawl. So thank you to everyone who's bought the pattern. That really was great. And also thanks to anyone who already decided to join in and knit the Squishy-licious with me. So I cast on my second Squishy-licious, which I was always planning to knit in this knit-along. The yarn I'm using is Life in the Long Grass. That's not it. This is a label, Life in the Long Grass. It's a British yarn, I believe. Colorway is Garden Party. It's their 75-25 base. So this is what it looks like in the cake. And I'm also using a contrasting color, at least I'm planning to use this. This is Malabrigo Finito in the lavender colorway. So I think I will use this as a contrasting border, but I haven't decided 100% yet. So I cast on the pattern, and let me try to show this to you. This is what I've done so far. So the end is rolling, and of course the edge here. But you can see I've done a little bit. I actually forced myself not to work on this too much because I want to knit this along with you, so I don't want to be finished that quickly. I have no rush. I just really want to enjoy this. So you can see this texture pattern, I think it's working out quite nicely with the yarn. In the beginning I wasn't sure if it's going to work, but I think it works well. And yeah, I'm really happy with this. You might remember my first Squishy-licious was pretty neutral with a few pink and brown speckles. So this one is a little bit more colorful and I really like it. I'm completely following the pattern. The only thing is when you cast on, it leaves this sort of gap up here, and in the pattern I tell you to close that gap in the end, but that just always annoys me when I'm knitting it, so I've already closed the gap here at the top. But that's literally all I'm doing differently, and it's not really different because it's already in the pattern. So I'm using my 3.5mm Addi lace needles, and you can see how they're silver but then they're not. So the plating is coming off at the top, or it's becoming a little bit more like golden. But with this one, it's just the color changes, but nothing actually happens to the needles, so they're still fine. So yeah, that's my Squishy-licious, and if you do want to join the knit along, it goes until July 31st. It's called the Squishy Cow, and like I said, it goes for this pattern as well as the Crazy Days shawl, which I released in February, I believe. And of course I have a shadow thread in the Ravelry group, and I will have to put up an FL thread pretty soon because I know one person has already finished. And that's just living in one of my old project bags that is covered in fiber, because I've also used that as a spindle bag, so it's quite large, or quite high, I suppose. So that's my Squishy-licious. Then I have the monkey socks. So I'm knitting the monkey socks, which is a Cookie A pattern. And I finished my first sock last week, so I have a hoe. So this is what the pattern is knitting up like. I really love it. Of course I had to change it up a little bit, so I just threw in my Fish Lips Kiss heel because I just love this heel, so that's what I mostly do. And then the bottom of the foot is knit in stockinette, and of course the rest is in the monkey socks patterning. So this is a paid for pattern on Ravelry, but if you go over to knitty.com, it's actually free. I think the paid for version has possibly more sizes, but if you just want a standard 64 sock, you can get this pattern for free on knitty.com. I've tried this sock on and it is a little bit tight, which might not be the fault of the pattern, but also because I wasn't liking the needles. I think I might have been cramping up while knitting a little bit. I feel like when I'm stressed and the tools are not working for me, I just have a way tighter gauge. But they still fit. I think once I block them out a little bit, they'll be fine. So the yarn I'm using is from Fondant Fiber, and I love everything that Deb from Fondant Fiber does. Her yarn is great, her fiber is amazing. I really need to order some more. In fact, I've been waiting for another yarn update, and then it happened a few days ago, maybe last week. But I couldn't order anything because I'm moving and I wouldn't know where to order it to. So it was really heartbreaking to not go onto the page and not order some. But I'm sure she'll do updates again. Anyways, this is our Spangle sock, which is a superwash merino, nylon and stellina. And the colorway is Brigadoon, or at least that's how I would pronounce it, but I'm not very good at that. So you can see the cake here, it's a little bit messy. But I absolutely love this colorway, and I've cast on the second sock. So I've done the ribbing, which I did 15 rows of 2x2 ribbing, and then 2 pattern repeats so far. And the needles that I'm using are still the Addi Premiums with the golden cord. I think they might be the same as the sock rockets. And like I said last week, I don't particularly love them. I just think the tip is a little bit too blunt for a pattern sock. But I actually thought about changing them to high highs because I just love high highs. But I didn't want to mess up the gauge, and frankly I was too lazy to, so I'm just going to keep knitting with these, and they work fine. There's nothing wrong with them, they're just not my favorite. But yeah, these are my monkey socks. And there's actually a cow for any cookie a pattern until the 30th of June, I believe. So I really want to hurry up and enter these into the cow. And then I have one more work in progress, which I only started yesterday, and I'm really excited about it. So you might have heard that Helen Stewart, who has the Curious Handmade podcast, she started a thing called the Shawl Society. So the Shawl Society is a thing where you basically pay in advance for an ebook, and then you will get a shawl pattern every month for 6 months. And it was actually, for the value or like the amount of patterns you're getting, it was quite cheap. And of course, you know, I always get sucked into these things, so I joined the Shawl Society, and that's the only way to get the patterns for now. So you have to either be part of it or you have to wait until I think November, which is when she'll release the patterns by themselves. Anyways, the first shawl pattern came out yesterday, and it's called the Talisman shawl. In fact, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but I'm just going to assume that's what it's called. So I was very anxious, and before she gave us information saying that there is a small, medium, and large size. So I was looking for through my stash, but I really didn't want to decide on any yarn before I saw the pattern. So I actually didn't. I had some ideas in my mind which yarn I might use, but I didn't actually settle on anything until I saw the pattern. And I really wanted to knit a large lace weight section shawl because I really love lace weight yarn. But also I really want to use this to knit for my stash. And surprisingly, my stash actually diminished quite a lot because I think I've only been buying sock yarn and slowly been using up my lace yarn and my other fingering weight yarn, which might not necessarily be good for socks. So I actually didn't have that many things to choose from. And when I first saw the pattern, I wasn't really sure how I felt about it either, to be honest. Like, it's a nice pattern, but it's not one that I would have necessarily picked or even noticed in a just on Ravelry by itself. But then when I looked through the pattern photos, there was one photo that looked really, really great. So I decided I'll just go for it. And I picked a yarn which is very unlike me, I think. It's very unusual for me, but it's been sitting in my stash for quite a long time. So I figured it's the perfect time to use it. And I have spare needles in my bag, which makes it complicated. So this yarn is by Drachenwolle. I'll show you the label in a second. But it's a singles lace yarn, but it's only 600 meters per 100 grams, so it's a heavy lace or light fingering yarn, I suppose. And you can see it's it has this sort of purpley brown undertone and then lots of little speckles. And you might know that I love knitting with a singles lace yarn. I know it pills, but it just feels really great. And this is 100% merino. This is the tag from Drachenwolle, but unfortunately they never write down the colorway names. And I also think this might have been a one-of-a-kind sort of colorway name. But this is a label if you're interested. So because I had only 600 meters of lace weight rather than 800, I decided to go with the medium size shawl, which is not meant for lace weight, but I think it'll be fine. I think I can figure it out. And I've also changed around the needles because I simply don't own a 3.75 millimeter needle. I really want to get a tip, just interchangeable tip for 3.75, which I think is US size 5. But I generally knit everything on 3.5 millimeter needles when it comes to shawls. And that's what I feel really comfortable with. So I just chose to go with 3.5, which is a US size 4. And I knit my shawls at a very loose gauge anyways, because I just like to knit that way, and it's my fastest way of knitting. So I think it should be fine. Anyways, I'm talking and talking, not showing you the pattern. This is what I've done so far. So it's actually quite a lot, but I just couldn't stop knitting on it, guys. I was just addicted to this yesterday. It came out at, I think, 12 in British time, which ended up being 1 p.m. here. And I just couldn't put it down. I just kept knitting on it, and it's super, super mindless, which is what actually, in the beginning I was a bit disappointed because it was so mindless, but it's actually perfect for the move. So it's a crescent-shaped shawl, and yes, this yarn is probably not perfect for showing off a pattern, but I figured it doesn't matter too much. Like I said, I just really wanted to use it because I wouldn't know what else to use it for anyways. So it's crescent-shaped, and then you have these tiny little starry stitches. They're actually a lot more, they show up more than they're showing up on the camera right now for some reason. Probably because there's a light background. Anyways, there's a sort of star motif in here, which is actually really clever. And it's also quite easy to knit, so this is really, really mindless and fun, and I really like stockinette shawls. I feel like a lot of shawls are always in garter stitch, and I'm just not a huge garter stitch fan. And I actually also don't really mind purling, so yeah, this is pretty perfect for me. And it's perfect for moving because I can just knit like a crazy person and put it down without worrying about the pattern too much. And yeah, the yarn has a really, really nice drape. I think once it's blocked out, this will be really, really perfect. I can't really show it to you, but it's very airy, the fabric, and I think it's going to be great. And it also feels good to be knitting from stash and knitting with something, because with this yarn I always intended it for some kind of shawl, but because it's a little bit variegated, I wouldn't really know what shawl to knit with it, because yeah, it's probably sort of would show off best in just stockinette or garter stitch. And as you know, I like my shawls to be a little bit more interesting than that. But yeah, I think this works out really, really well. The needles that I'm using are my Knit Pro Nova interchangeables, the 3.5 millimeter. And I actually use my Knit Pro Nova interchangeable set a lot. It does have its flaws, to be honest, but I think it's got a really, really great price point. And most of the time it works really, really well. And every now and then, if I'm not enjoying the needles with a certain yarn, I just change. But yeah, I actually use my interchangeable set quite a lot. So that's my shawl by Helen Stewart, the first of the Shawl Society. And I'm just speeding through this, like I just can't stop. So the next pattern comes out in July, I believe, and I'm not really worried. I think I'll have this finished rather quickly, even though I do realize that the rows are going to be quite long. I think already with the medium size, which is what I'm doing, you're close to 500 stitches at the end. But yeah, like I said, I'm happy with it. And actually that's it for my works in progress. I really want to get my monkey socks off the needle soon because there's sock yarn waiting for me at home and I really want to cast that on, and I'm just craving vanilla socks. In fact, the entire week I had to really, really stop myself from just casting on vanilla socks because I'm really, really craving some. And I think now with the shawl that has a lot of stockinette as well, so that kind of helps. But yeah, I really want to cast on some socks, so I want to finish some works in progress first. So with that, I'll quickly move into spinning. I actually haven't spun anything new because I can't spin with my back issue. But last week I had shown you the singles that I had just finished spinning, and I actually now have washed them. I have fulled them, which means that you slightly felt the yarn by putting it into cold water and then hot water and then cold water again. And you just do that a couple of times. And that just makes the yarn more balanced and also stronger. So I've done that, and now the yarn is completely finished. It's actually 2 skeins of yarn. I just twisted them together, but when I wound off the yarn off the bobbin, it just, because it's singles, it doesn't have that much twist in it, it just tends to fall apart. So I actually have 2 skeins, but they're relatively balanced actually. And you can see I think the yarn came out really, really nicely. So the singles aren't perfectly even, but they're relatively even, and I'm really happy with it. So I should probably tell you what it is. This is 100% Polworth in the Precious Rock colorway. And this fiber was from Sarah's Texture Crafts, who I talk about every week for some reason. And this is 100 grams over somehow in these two skeins. I'm not sure about each skein individually. And I have 585 meters of this yarn, so it's between a fingering and lace weight yarn. So that means I can do quite a lot of stuff with this. I think it might be, oh, it has to be some kind of shawl. Sarah suggested I should design another pattern with it. I'm also thinking it might look great as a Squishy-licious shawl, but yeah, I can probably use it for basically any shawl. It is, like I said, single, so it might peel a little bit more, but yeah. I think this might have been my favorite spin of the entire year. I really, really enjoyed spinning this up. It was the fiber was just prepped perfectly, and it was so enjoyable, and I love the colors, and I love spinning singles, and yeah. I'm really happy. And I'm going to twist that later, because I'm not very good at scanning yarn while I'm talking to you guys. So that's already it for spinning. I was always planning to not spin before we moved, just because I didn't want another spinning project to have to be on the wheel and having to transport the wheel. And also I was planning to spin as soon as I get back or get into a new place. But because of my back issue, I'm not actually sure when I'm going to be able to spin again. But I'm hoping it'll be soon, because I really, really miss it. And otherwise I might have to try if I can use my spindle without hurting myself. But yeah, I'm hoping I'll be back to normal pretty soon. And actually that's all of my knitting stuff. So I have acquisitions, but they're waiting for me at home. So I am more than excited tomorrow to get home. And by home I mean my parents' place, because I have a crazy amount of sock yarn that I purchased within the last 2 weeks. In fact, I only made 2 purchases, but then I also got offered to review some hand-dyed yarn, so I have that waiting for me. So yeah, that'll be a nice little treat once we get this apartment cleaned tomorrow and everything is moved, to go back to my parents' place and hang out with my family, and I'll get to cuddle with my new yarn. So I'll show you all these acquisitions next week. In fact, I want to show you have a podcast next week, but because we're moving, things might happen. So we're supposed to get an internet connection down there on Monday. So if all goes well, I should be able to record and upload a podcast and everything pretty much as normal. But of course, even with the technician coming, there's always a chance of something not working out. So if there's no podcast, I will definitely let you know on Instagram about why or when or something. But I am planning to record next week if I have, or the problem isn't the recording, it's the uploading that I'm worried about, but it should be fine. So before I go into life in general, I'll just tell you guys where you can find me. So if you don't want to listen to me waffle about my life, that's fine. So you can find me on Ravelry as Wipfi, which is WUEPFI. And we have a Ravelry group, which is called the Happy Knitting Podcast group. And in that group you can find the threads for the knit-alongs. We have a introduction thread. There's an ask away thread, so if you ever want to ask me any questions, I will answer them if you put them in there. Of course, I'll also answer them if you send me a message, but anyways, there's a thread for that. And I post show notes every week in the Ravelry group, so in there I'll just link to all of my projects, so you can look up the yarn and the needles and anything that you might be interested in. You can also find me on Instagram as the Happy Knitting Podcast. I think that's pretty much it. So if you're only here for the knitting, that's totally fine. I'll see you next week. And if you want to stick around, I'll just quickly talk about life and what's been going on. So, of course, we've been packing because it's been our last week here in Würzburg. So on the weekend, my boyfriend came home because he was in England at his firm's headquarters for the week. So he came home and he was really, really excited to just spend the weekend doing nothing. And you can imagine his joy and happiness when I told him that, in fact, I think we need to be cleaning and doing things rather than doing nothing. So we spent the weekend cleaning the balcony and, you know, organizing our things, going through our things. Like some of the stuff we have, we don't necessarily want to move. We have to sell some things. We had to throw away some things. We had to give some stuff to charity. And I mean, all of you, I'm sure, have moved at some point before, and you just know the amount of work that goes into it. So we spent our weekend and most of Monday doing sort of moving, housework. And then on Tuesday, I was just organizing my yarns. In fact, I was actually not even packing them, but I just have this sort of little drawer thing. And I was just organizing my yarns, and I was putting all my minis into plastic bags and yeah, just organizing things. And I was bending over, and I bent over a little bit further, and something just went terribly wrong with my back. Thank God my boyfriend was there, because I was really, really close to fainting at that point because I was just in a lot of pain. But in the end, we got me somehow sitting on the couch, and I was just freaking out because I was like, I can't move, and yeah, it really was a scary experience. So we were trying to phone doctors and trying to get me an appointment because I was seriously, I just really needed to see a doctor that day. And of course, we couldn't get any appointments, especially any appointments in walking distance. So I actually ended up going to the emergency room really quickly just to make sure that there's nothing I need to do immediately, which there wasn't. They just told me to eat painkillers. But then actually the day after, I saw a proper doctor, like orthopedic doctor, I suppose. And I spent 2 hours there, and they did the x-rays and tests because they were actually not quite sure what was going on, if I pinched a nerve or if that's something else. But the end of the story is that I am getting physiotherapy or some kind of physiotherapy starting next Monday. So essentially on our first day in Munich, I'm already having my first appointment, and they're saying that I need a sort of special movement therapy to sort of unblock what's been blocked in the bottom of my spine. So it's nothing too serious at all. It's just really, really annoying and terrible timing because obviously I can't lift anything, I can't carry anything, I can't clean anything. I'm actually okay to walk around once I get up. Like, I can sit, I can lie, I can even walk around and stand up, but the standing up or the moving is the problem. So I feel like an old grandma, like every time we go somewhere, I need like 5 minutes where I'm walking around like crazy and I can't stretch, and then over time I can stretch up again. So yeah, once I'm actually moving, it's okay. I can actually move quite well. It's just a little bit, yeah, it's just pretty unfortunate, and that means that a lot of the work that I was planning on doing, like cleaning and packing and all that, I really can't do anymore. I definitely can't lift anything. So that was quite tough on both of us in regards to our move. So our packing has pretty much looked like me standing around and giving things to my boyfriend, who would then pack it and giving instructions, and you can imagine that none of us were very, very happy about that. Like, in theory, not being able to clean or pack or do anything sounds pretty great, but in reality it's just a pain, and I'd rather be working because the stress that things have to get done is still there. But anyways, I'm just happy that it's nothing worse. I can knit, I can move around, and I think it should get better pretty soon. Or at least I hope so. And it's pretty funny because in theory, the idea of, being bound to just sit on the couch and knit and, be careful with my back and all that sounds pretty good. But then when it actually came to just, sitting down and not doing anything, I was going really, really stir crazy. And I have learned that I like the idea of doing nothing, but in reality, I don't like it at all. So I've been still running around a little bit and doing little errands that I could do, and yeah, that's the story of my back. And because of that I think that's also a reason why I got quite a bit of knitting done, because at some point there's just nothing else I can do. Especially right now, like my boyfriend is at work. So I see all these things that need to be packed, but physically I can't pack anything, so I'm just forced to sit down and knit, which I guess is nice. Anyways, that's my bag. I hope I can spin again soon, because that's something I'm really interested in. And also, I don't think at the moment I'm able to drive my car, which is a little bit of a pain, so I'm hoping that that'll be better soon. Thank God we have a moving company, so my boyfriend's firm is actually funding a lot of our move, because he's moving for his job. So we are getting a company tomorrow who will actually pack some of our stuff and do the carrying and all that. So that's not a big issue. But even with the moving company, there's stuff that I'd like to organize and sort and pack beforehand. So that's still more work than I thought it would be. So with the move, it's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow morning at 7, they're coming to pick up our things, which means that we'll be getting up at 6 to organize everything first. So I think it's going to be a long night tonight when my boyfriend gets home from work. We need to have everything ready, and just the organization of it, because they're taking our things and only delivering them on Monday means that we need to, pack our own things, which we need before that, and make sure that everything that needs to stay in this apartment, because some of these, like this furniture, is not actually ours. Like all of that needs to stay in here. So I'm really, really worried that somehow some, curtains of our tenant, of our landlords, or a table that needs to stay here actually ends up in Munich. I'm really, really worried about that. But I guess we just need to supervise very carefully, and we'll definitely label everything and hope that that'll work. Because last time I moved, I got a moving company just for a couple of hours because I had to transport a piano and a washing machine, and the people who came, they were really, really nice, but they actually didn't speak any German, and they kept carrying things out of the apartment and moving them that weren't supposed to be moved. So in the end I ended up driving back down to where they moved them and picking them back up and bringing them back. So I'm hoping that'll go better tomorrow. But yeah, it's happening. It's being fine. It's really crazy for me, because today is literally my last day in the city, and I know I'll come back because I have friends here and my family only lives an hour from here, and who knows, maybe I'll have to go into university again at some point to talk to someone in person. I don't know, but it still feels pretty crazy. And with this sort of move, it's not only that we're moving cities, but it's pretty much also the end of my university career, I suppose. Like, I studied here for 4.5 years, and now I only have to hand in my thesis, and then I'm pretty much done. So this whole university chapter of my life is pretty much finishing as well, which is a little bit scary. But yeah, I'm really excited at the same time. I wish my last week might have been spent a little bit different than sitting on the couch, unable to do anything, and canceling on my friends because of doctor's appointments. But there's nothing I can do about it, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about the new move. We're constantly trying to think about how it's going to be when we're down in Munich, which is where we're moving, and we just don't know yet. It's going to be an interesting feeling to get to the new apartment and get settled in. And I'll actually only be down there for 3 days, and then I'll have to go up here again for 2 days. So I'll be moving around anyways, but I'm looking forward to the point at some point where we're just a little bit settled in, and you can focus on, making the new place our home and all that. So I will have a craft room, and a few people have asked if I can show that on the podcast, and I'll definitely show it at some point. It might just not be immediately, because we still need a bit of furniture, which we need to buy, but of course my boyfriend is working, and at the moment I can't carry things, so I'm not sure if the craft room is going to be finished immediately. And the craft room is actually going to be my office / I'm just calling it my craft room, because realistically there's going to be more yarn and fiber and stuff in there than there's going to be work stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind and give you some kind of tour of my stash at some point. Right now my stash is neatly packed away in 2 boxes. In fact, it's 2 boxes that also include my fabric stash and sewing stuff and project bags, so I'm actually really happy about that. My boyfriend thought it was quite a lot of yarn, and everyone that saw it on Instagram thought it was very little yarn. So I think you guys are right. I think my stash isn't too huge and I can definitely buy some more if needed. Yeah, so that's the moving part. I hope you're not sick of me talking about it because it's probably going to be a topic for a while. On another really, really happy note, I had a meeting with my supervisor for my thesis yesterday. So for those of you who don't know, I'm writing my master's thesis in psychology, and that has been going downhill for a long time. I essentially had to restart it after 3 months, 2 weeks ago, because of some troubles between the professor and the supervisor, and yeah. But finally, it's actually moving along. So my second proposal got accepted, got sent to the professor. The professor also really liked it, so I'm pretty much ready to move on now. So now the next steps are really, really clear for me. I can start my survey, and at the same time, I can already start writing. I could start writing my thesis, like the theoretical part. I'm saying could because in reality, I'm not really sure when I'm going to start that, just because right now there's a lot of other stuff going on as well. But yeah, I feel like it's moving forward, and the big step was getting it approved and accepted by both the supervisor and the professor, and that's all done now. I also had to formally enroll the thesis with the university, so it's just sort of like a formality where you have to hand in your topic and you have to get it signed by a couple of different people from different parts of the university and then send it to the administration building, I suppose, which then logs it in. So I actually did that yesterday, and I was freaking out a little bit because I knew I had to do it before we moved. And then my supervisor was on holiday, so I couldn't get his signature on it, and I was just freaking out that it might not work out, but it's all worked out, and I feel like once I actually have time to sit down and work on my thesis, I really could. So that's good, and I mean, with thesis work, essentially, I can do that on the couch. I don't have to move for it. I can do everything on my computer. So I'm really, really happy I have a sort of work or what I do that I can do from the couch. So even if I can't walk or anything very well, it doesn't impair it. Whereas I used to work in a coffee shop, and that would be completely disastrous right now. So yeah, all in all, that's pretty good news. I'm really, really happy about that, and I probably babbled on about that way too long now. I'm actually meeting my best friend now for breakfast, and I'm super, super excited about that because I had to cancel with all the doctor's appointments, and we got to the point where we thought we might actually not see each other again before we moved, and now we're going out for a long breakfast, which is great because our fridge is completely empty already. So it wasn't like I was going to have good breakfast at home. In fact, we've been eating takeaway and easy to go food all the time now because we just don't want to get our kitchen dirty again. So yeah, I'm probably gonna get going pretty soon because it takes me a long time to walk there. But I'm super, super excited about it, and I am very anxious but also excited for the move tomorrow. It's going to be very, very interesting, and I'm just so excited about the moment when we're done here. Our stuff is gone, the apartment is relatively clean, and we'll spend the night at my family's place. So I'm really looking forward to just spending some time with them in this in-between stage, and then on Sunday we'll drive down to the new apartment, which is going to be insane. I'm really, really excited, I think. So, sorry for the probably very, very babbly and rambly episode. That's just what you get when I'm stressed out and I don't know, whatever. I really hope that you still liked it, and I suppose if you stuck around until now, you kind of hated it too much. So thank you so much to you guys. I really, really enjoy talking to you every week. I enjoy the feedback. I enjoy the community aspect of this whole knitting, which is why I enjoy the podcast so much. I think the main reason for me is not to be sitting in front of a camera talking to you or trying to get subscribers. It's just the sort of dialogue that we have and the contacts or like the great people that I meet through the podcast, and I really, really appreciate you guys. So I hope you have a great weekend. I hope yours is going to be likely a little bit less stressful than ours will be. And I am hoping to be filming next week from a new beautiful location in a beautiful apartment. Like I said, I'm not going to guarantee it. The best way to keep up with what's happening is probably on my Instagram, which is the Happy Knitting Podcast. I do warn you, it's probably going to be a little bit moving focused for the next couple of days, but I'll definitely post there if I have to delay the podcast or anything like that. And if you're subscribed, you'll get a notification when the podcast is up anyway, so it shouldn't be a huge deal. So again, thank you guys so much, and I will see you from a new location next week.